Hi, folks. Welcome. I wanted to make a short video explanation of the literature review assignment. And so, in layman's terms, we're talking about a research paper here. And so, basically, what I'm going to explain is all the different steps you're going to go through in order to do a kind of proper scholarly research paper with correct citations, acknowledging your sources appropriately, and all the rest of it. Um, and I'm going to have other videos and other resources for some of these different pieces that you see here. But I'm just going to focus on the major assignment in this one. So you'll have to look at the syllabus to see when the different parts are due. As you'll see, we're going to go through different pieces of the project bit by bit. And so it's not like the whole thing is due at one day. We're going through it all together, piece by piece, because I'm not assuming that anyone has ever done a research paper before. And so I'm kind of walking you through the whole process step by step. We're going to use APA format. I expect APA in the final draft to be perfect. That means there's 1 inch margin, it's double spaced, 12-point font. I'd like you to use Times New Roman font. Um, the length, at least 5 full pages double spaced of writing, and not including the title page, cover page, or the references page. So that means 5 full pages at least of double spaced writing. There's no maximum. You can write as much as you'd like to. Often students become very interested in their topics. They have a lot to say. I want you to incorporate at least 8 credible sources into the final draft. And I want you to find at least 2 peer-reviewed articles um, and put those in the final draft as well. Okay, so the purpose, so this kind of answers the question, why am I calling it a literature review, not a research paper? And kind of professional academic research, a literature review is like a real thing people do. It's like a professional research paper. And so anybody, even a professional researcher um, who wants to work on a certain topic, the first thing they do is they go out and they see what everybody else has said about their topic, and they educate themselves about that first. Because the idea is you can't do your own research, you can't make your own argument until you kind of know what you're talking about. And so that's step one. And so I'd like you to kind of do that. You're going to choose a topic. I'm going to give you a list. You can come up with your own. Going to choose a topic. You're going to go find credible sources of information on that topic. And then you're going to compile this information into a coherent, well organized paper that reports to your audience in an objective, unbiased way, kind of what you've found, what you've learned by doing this research. And again, like I said, this is something professional scholars do. You have to start any research by taking a look at what other people have already done. Um, and so some of the things that are going to come up, some of the modules from the online textbook are going to be helpful. There are 2 units on the research process. One is finding and evaluating sources. The other one is using and citing sources. The analysis and synthesis uh, module also will be helpful, because in order to take all this information and put it into one paper, essentially what you're doing is synthesizing different pieces of information, kind of weaving it all together into a coherent report. And so we'll talk more about that at a later time. I'll give you some more resources on that as we get closer to that part. And if you read peer-reviewed articles, they often begin with a literature review. So you'll see this is actually a real thing. Okay, and so you'll choose a topic. There's a whole assignment just to choose the topic, as I'll talk about. I'm going to give you a list of possible questions. And so you have the option to choose your own question, but I'm going to need to approve the topic. It needs to be in some way scholarly. And so I have a very open mind on what counts as scholarly. But basically, you're going to need to be able to find resources in the library on that topic. And pretty much anything where you can find sources in the library on it, I'll definitely approve. But we'll talk more about that when we get to that part. And so again, an important part of this, it's informative, unbiased, impartial, objective. Which means you're not making an argument, you're not giving your opinion. You're just reporting the facts on what you find. And some of the facts you should find and will find are arguments being made by other people. And so while you're reporting the arguments made by other people, you're not going to make your own argument about the topic. You're just reporting all the information you find. Okay, and in terms of the sources, so in the final draft, 8 credible sources, at least 6 of them should be published within the last 10 years, at least 2 peer-reviewed articles. And these are the steps we're going to go through. And, I'm going to provide further instruction as we get closer to each step. The first one is the research proposal. You're essentially identifying a topic in the form of a research question, which is a little bit different from a topic. It's a little bit more specific. And we'll talk about key search terms, key concepts. That's kind of the first thing we need to talk about. And you have a good research question if you can identify about 3 key concepts in there. In the document, I'll give you the possible research questions. They're good models of good research questions. And you're free to choose one of those if you want to. The next part's the annotated bibliography. It's a fancy name for your research notes. But there's a particular way I want you to do it. All you really have to do is cite your source in APA and then put your notes below the source. That's really all there is to it. Your notes should be at least 100 words per source, and they should do the following. Number 1, give a brief explanation of how you know that source is credible. Number 2, make a brief note to yourself about how it fits into your paper. And number 3, the most important thing really, summarize the main points of the source. Okay, what's in there? What information might you use in your paper? And that's really important because what happens is when you're juggling all these different sources, it can become easy to forget which information came from which source. And you need to remember that because you need to cite where all the information came from in the paper. Otherwise, you're plagiarizing, even if it's not intentional. We'll talk more about the annotated bibliography when we get there. The outline, just like the outline for any paper, as usual, I'm not super strict about how detailed it has to be. But I do want you to include like which sources you'll talk about in each section of the paper. Again, we'll talk more about that as we get there. And then you've got the rough draft. And as usual, we'll do our peer review, and you'll get feedback from me, and you'll have a significant amount of time to work on revisions and editing and so forth. And you'll get credit if you meet some minimum requirements. Okay, the rest of this document, I kind of break things down step by step. I'm not going to read this out loud to you. You can read this on your own time. And there's a rubric. Again, I'm not going to read this out loud to you, but you can read it on your own time. It kind of goes through all the basic stuff, organization, clarity, content unity, APA format and incorporation of sources, grammar, mechanics, proofreading, all the rest of it. It's all pretty straightforward. Just basic principles of good writing, more or less. So it's a research paper. Fancy literature review is a fancy name for a research paper. At least 5 pages double-spaced of your writing, APA format. The due dates are on the syllabus. And so please let me know if you have questions. I think I'm going to wrap the video up there. Thanks.